Hey YouTube, John here, Old Hickory Forge. Just wanted to walk you through a quick review of this Harbor Freight 4x6 bandsaw, so stick around. So here's just a quick look at the saw before we start looking at specifics. My honest opinion is it's a great tool to have around the shop. That being said, I had to buy 3 of these before I got one that was worth a damn. First one, the switch didn't work, took it back. Second one, the casting holes in the cast iron base of the stand were actually crooked, so when it set flat in the carriage, the blade was actually touching both ends, and that just wasn't doing it all. This thing is not going to cut dead straight no matter what you do. It's a bandsaw, there's always going to be flex in the blade, but it will cut relatively close to true if you're just trying to get a big piece of stock trimmed down to pieces you can use or something like that. This is a great tool to have. So anyway, like I said, a great tool to have around the shop, but you know, you're kind of taking your chances when you buy one. But the great thing is you can always return it and exchange it for another one. I think their price is like $269, and with a 20% off coupon I paid like $220 or something like that. There are other models of 4x6 bandsaws out there. There's Grizzly makes a model, Jet makes a model, but everything I've read online, I don't know if this is true or not, but everything I've read states that all of these saws are actually made in the very same factory over in Taiwan, and the only difference is they change the paint. People there's a whole group on Yahoo dedicated to these 4x6 bandsaws and modifications and stuff like that, and there have been people who have deconstructed a $700 Jet model and a $200 Harbor Freight model, and all the pieces are exactly the same. So that's just my thoughts and kind of an overview of the saw. So next thing we'll do is talk about specifics. So the saw itself is actually surprisingly robust in my opinion. This is a very thick cast iron base that this sits on. The frame of the saw is actually completely independent from it. You could take it off, fabricate your own frame if you wanted to, which a lot of people do because they say the sheet metal's too flimsy. But I found that with all the screws tightened down and everything, it's actually really, really rigid, so I haven't had a problem with it. But anyway, you just grab it right here, set it down on your piece of stock. It's got a little hook right here that'll shut it off automatically when it's done, so that's a really, good feature to have. So here's a closer look at some of the features of the saw. Good thick cast iron clamp. Clamps things good and square. You can adjust it to clamp at an angle using this bolt here and this bolt here if you need to. I've never had to, but it could be done. Clamp moves freely with this little handle down here. This is how you adjust your down feed rate. There's a spring up here with an eye bolt through it. You can turn this to make it tighter or looser. The tighter you make that spring, the slower this saw is going to feed. And I've already found these things don't have a lot of weight up top, so they tend to cut very, very slowly. So I've got it loosened up all the way. So let's just kind of look at this area of the saw. So here's the motor, 3/4 horsepower motor, which is more than enough for a slow-moving saw like this. You can adjust your speed using these step pulleys over here. I've got it set on the slowest speed right now, I believe. It does come with a cover that you can bolt onto it to, I guess, protect the pulleys or whatever. Personally, I think it's stupid, so I didn't put it on. In my shop, we have what's called the act like you have some sense rule, where I expect you to know not to stick your fingers into a moving belt. But anyway, there's that. For small stuff, if I'm cutting out rose petals, I'll set it up faster because it's just a little more controllable to follow the curves and everything. But on big stock, if it's set too fast, your blade will kind of want to bounce rather than cut. So I keep it on the slowest speed for general use. So here's a quick look inside the saw. Top and bottom flywheels are both cast iron. Door doesn't stay open too well, which I wish it did, but it is what it is. To adjust tension on the top flywheel to make the blade run tighter or looser, you want to run it pretty tight, but you adjust that with this knob up here. And you can tell it's tight enough if when you pluck it, it kind of makes like a dull ring, kind of like a violin. That's what you're looking for. So if you need to adjust that top flywheel left to right to change the tracking of the blade for any reason, I've never had to. You do so with these bolts. You could tighten one and loosen the other, and it'll push and pull and kind of change the cam of the wheel. But like I said, I've never had to adjust these. So you can change the depth of the throat and whatnot with this thing here. Again, I've never really found a need to use it. But, sits relatively square. It's not perfect, but it's never going to be. So it's supposed to come with a detachable cutting table, so you can use it in the vertical position as well, which I actually do all the time. I use this for cutting out petals when I make my roses. This one, when I unboxed it, actually didn't have the cutting plate with it. So I thought about calling Central Machinery customer service and finding the SKU number and trying to get the replacement part or whatever. But I figured in the time it would take me to do that, I could fabricate a new one. So I just got a piece of 3/16 inch plate, cut a channel it with a grinder, drilled and tapped 2 holes. And they're the same measurements as the ones in the saw frame. So it slides on there just like that, bolts directly to the saw frame. It's rock solid. And a lot of people complain about the frame being flimsy, but I'm 230 pounds and it's holding me with 0 play in it. So It's nice and comfortable. I can just sit here, do whatever I got to do to make my rose petals. So if it doesn't come with the cutting plate, don't sweat it. You can make another one without too much effort. So the main thing I use this saw for is for cutting big stock that I can't be bothered to sit there and go over with a grinder again and again. Cutting wheels are expensive, and these blades last 4 to 6 months, easy if you buy good ones. So all you do, throw your piece of stock in there, tighten up your clamp, turn on your saw, bring it down, and now you can just walk away. You don't have to sit there and babysit it. So it is slower than if I had chucked this up in the chop saw, and I could probably do it with a grinder faster, but like I said, cutting wheels are expensive, and this is time I could be spending doing something else, cleaning up the workshop, getting the forge ready, and it'll shut off automatically when it's done. So I'm just going to let that go. I'll time it and we'll see how long it takes to get through this piece of 1.5 inch square. So there you go. You're through and it shuts off on its own. So there you go. About 8 minutes and 43 seconds to get through that piece of 1.5 inch square mild steel. I could have cut it faster with a chop saw, but I have to sit there and babysit it with a chop saw. I could have cut it faster with an angle grinder, but I'm going to go through probably $7 or $8 worth of cutting wheels. This didn't cost me anything. And now that's all time I could be spending doing something else. So in my opinion, this is a huge time saver. So there you go. Just a quick look at the Harbor Freight 4 inch by 6 inch bandsaw. If you ask me, it's a great tool to have around the shop. Totally worth the money. I could chuck up a big piece of stock and walk away and do something else and not worry about wasting electricity because it shuts itself off when it's done. I also forgot to mention earlier, there is a pin back there on the back side where you can lock it into the up or down positions for moving it or if you're going to do a bunch of vertical work. So, yeah, great tool to have around the shop. Totally worth the money. If you have a need for cutting big stock, I would strongly recommend you pick one of these up. So that's just my take on the saw. Great workhorse to have around the shop. I have zero complaints. It works great for what I need it for. You know, if you have to cut bigger stuff, there are 7x12 models out there as well, but this works fine for what I need it for. I've seen people actually cut pieces of railroad track with these before. And there's all kinds of aftermarket modifications you can make to these. You can get coolant feed systems. You can get hydraulic feed, down feeds that make them cut a little square. But like I said, this is just the stock saw with a Starrett blade on it, and it works great for what I need it for. If you have one of these saws and you have anything you'd like to share, please let me know in the comments section. If you have any questions, same thing. Everybody take care, and thanks for watching.